say the old Blackwood Manor is empty. They're wrong. I should know. I bought it. It was a steal, really. A sprawling Victorian relic on the edge of town, with acres of overgrown woods separating it from the nearest neighbor. Perfect for a writer seeking solitude. The realtor, a nervous man named Mr. Abernathy, had rushed through the showing, glossing over the chipped paint and the persistent chill in the air. He mentioned something about the house having character. I'd soon learn just how much character it had. The first few weeks were blissfully quiet. I set up my office in the grand library, surrounded by dusty, leather-bound books that smelled of vanilla and thyme. The house creaked and groaned, as old houses do, but it was a comforting sound, like the gentle sighs of a sleeping giant. I wrote, I explored the winding corridors, and I fell in love with the lonely majesty of the place. Then, the nights began to change. It started subtly. A floorboard creaking upstairs when I was downstairs. A door, which I was certain I had closed, standing slightly ajar. I dismissed it as my imagination, the product of a writer's overactive mind fueled by too much coffee and too little sleep. But the disturbances grew bolder. One night, I was jolted awake by a sound from the hallway. It was faint, but unmistakable, the soft, rhythmic bounce of a small ball. Bounce or catch. Bounce or catch. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crept out of bed and peered into the darkness. The hallway was empty, bathed in the pale glow of the moon filtering through a large stained glass window. The bouncing stopped. I told myself it was the house settling, the wind, anything but what I feared it was. The next night, it happened again. Bounce or catch. This time, it was closer, just outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, listening. A soft giggle echoed through the silence, a child's laugh that was both innocent and chillingly out of place. It sounded like it was right on the other side of the door. I froze, too terrified to move, until the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains and the sounds finally faded. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. The nights were filled with a mounting dread. I started hearing faint whispers, like a child humming a nursery rhyme I couldn't quite place. Sometimes I'd catch a fleeting movement in the corner of my eye, a flash of white, a shadow that moved when I didn't. One evening, determined to find a rational explanation, I set up a small camera in the upstairs hallway, pointed towards the top of the main staircase. I went to bed, leaving the camera to be my silent witness. The next morning, I anxiously reviewed the footage. For hours, there was nothing but the empty, moonlit hall. Then, around 3 a.m., it happened. A small, translucent figure of a girl, no older than 8, flickered into view at the top of the stairs. She wore a simple, old-fashioned white nightdress, and her long, dark hair obscured her face. In her hands, she held a small, red rubber ball. She let it drop. It bounced down one step, then another, with a dull thud that the camera's microphone somehow picked up. The girl drifted down after it, not walking, but floating, her feet never touching the wooden steps. When she reached the bottom, she picked up the ball, looked directly at the camera, and giggled. The screen went to static. My blood ran cold. It was real. I wasn't going crazy. There was a ghost in my house. A little girl. Driven by a mix of terror and a strange sort of curiosity, I dove into the town's history, spending hours at the local library. I discovered the story of the Blackwood family, the original owners of the manor. They had a daughter, Elara, a spirited, happy child who loved to play with her favorite red ball in the grand hallways of her home. One winter's night in 1892, She fell ill with a sudden fever. She passed away in her bed before the doctor could even arrive. She was only 7 years old. The record said she was buried in the family plot behind the manor. That afternoon, I found it, hidden beneath a tangle of ivy and weeds. A small, weathered headstone read, Elara Blackwood. Our dearest angel. A profound sadness washed over me, replacing my fear. She wasn't a monster. She was a lost child, trapped in the place she once called home. That night, the bouncing started as usual. Bounce or catch. But this time, I didn't hide. I took a deep breath, opened my bedroom door, and stepped into the hallway. There she was. At the far end, under the stained glass window, was the shimmering form of Elara. She stopped bouncing the ball and looked at me, her head tilted. Her face wasn't scary. It was pale and sad, with large, dark eyes that held a century of loneliness. My voice trembled as I spoke. "Hello, Elara." She didn't answer, just clutched her red ball tighter. "My name is Sam," I continued, taking a slow step forward. "This is your house, isn't it? It's a beautiful home." She gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The humming started again, that same sad, forgotten lullaby. "You're lonely, aren't you?" I asked softly. "Again," she nodded. A single, shimmering tear traced a path down her translucent cheek. I don't know what came over me, but I sat down right there in the middle of the hallway. "I'm a writer," I said. "I tell stories. Would you like to hear one?" She looked at me, her curiosity seeming to outweigh her shyness. She floated a little closer and sat in the air across from me, her legs crossed, still clutching her ball. And so, in the dead of night, in the haunted halls of Blackwood Manor, I told a ghost story to a ghost. I told her tales of brave knights, enchanted forests, and stars that sang. With every word, her form seemed to become a little less transparent, the chill in the air a little less biting. She listened intently, her sad eyes wide with wonder. When I finished, a faint smile touched her lips. She held out her red ball to me. It was an offering, a gesture of trust. I reached out, my hand passing through hers, but for a split second, I felt a faint pressure, a spark of cold energy. She then faded away, not with a sudden disappearance, but like smoke dissipating on the wind, leaving behind only the scent of old books and a faint, lingering peace. The nightly disturbances stopped. No more bouncing balls, no more phantom giggles. The house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. It was no longer empty. It felt peaceful. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm writing in the library, I'll catch a flicker of white in my periphery, or hear the faintest, most distant hum of a forgotten lullaby. And I smile. I'm not alone in this house. I have a roommate. A quiet, spectral little girl named Elara. We share the solitude. I write my stories, and she, I think, enjoys listening to them. They say the old Blackwood Manor is haunted. They're right. But it's not a haunting. It's a home. For both of us, thank you so much for listening to my story tonight. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe and have a good night.